So, hi, good morning. All good? So, we'll be starting with the new topic, and that is social religious reform. Okay? So, social religious reform, and as we discussed last day, that we'll be starting with some comparisons, and these comparisons would be the reform movement, revivalist movement, then the reforms in the 19th century and 20th century. Though books have not mentioned the comparison between the 19th century reform and 20th century reform. But the question which was there in, I think in 2020 in mains paper, that was on the basis of this comparison. So many a times, whatever way you are expecting that the things will be coming, it will not be in that way. But always keep in mind that it is the question which is different. Answers are always same. Then you only need to open your thinking process, and then you give input, or you start putting inputs from the whatever you have written in the classes. The answer would be in line with the demand of the UPSC. So let's start with it. And moreover, after this comparison, we'll go into the reforms in Hinduism. So religion wise, first Hinduism, then Islam, then Sikhism, and then after that the last religion would be the Zoroastrianism. So before moving ahead with this topic, very first thing is, who was the pioneer of the social religious reform in India? Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Okay? And Raja Ram Mohan Roy, so I would start with a quotation of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and also not only Raja Ram Mohan Roy, but also one of the quotation which was given by Max Weber. How many of you have heard about Max Weber? Many of you. Okay? Those who have sociology as an optional, and then pol science, and even public administration. So you must have heard about the Max Weber. Why we are going to mention about the Max Weber? Because he was contemporary of the Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and he has a deep study on all the religions of the world, which includes Hinduism, which includes Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. In fact, the two Chinese practices. Then in China, as you know, that they don't practice religion, and near about 95% population of China is atheist. I hope you know this much. And a little bit of religious practices are there, that too limited to the Buddhism. Then so limited to the Buddhism, and moreover, there are very few Muslims that is in Uyghur province of the China, and that is a human right issue that we know. So when it comes to China, so Confucianism and Taoism, okay, these are the two practices which were popular in China. It's not a religion, but it's a culture of preserving the old tradition, and also worshipping, or basically paying obeisance to their forefathers, their ancestors. So this is the practice. Now he deeply studied, and he also commented on the Hinduism. So there is some sort of truth in his comment, but then it does not captures the entire truth. What he commented was just a partial truth, which he generalized it, but then we will have to write, we'll be writing. So just understand what Raja Ram Mohan has to say. In 1828, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he wrote that the present system of religion adhered to by the Hindus is not well calculated to promote their political interest. So he's only commenting on the Hindus. He's not commenting on any other religion. And what he said, that the present system of religion adhered to by the Hindus is not well calculated to promote their political interest. So he's saying that whatever practices we are following is not coinciding with the political interest. Then that's one part. Then what Max Weber has to say. After studying Hinduism, he said that Hinduism has become a compound of magic. Okay? So he said in the same year then, that Hinduism had become compound of magic, animism, superstitious practices, and abominable rites and physical torture has taken the place of the worship, okay, or replaced the place of the worship. So this is what he said. Let's analyze his statement. That he said that Hinduism had become a compound of magic. So there is no denial in it that every religion in the world has some sort of element of the magic. In each and every religion, okay? Not just Hinduism, but in each and every religion, there is an aspect of the magic. Okay? Initially, some of the religions which started without magic, for example, that Buddhism, it started without emphasization on the magic, but then in the later stages, Tantricism and the magic all got incorporated. Similarly, okay, in all the other religions, be it Christianity, be it Islam, be it Jainism, be it any religion, so it got incorporated. So this is first thing that he said about the Hinduism, that Hinduism had become a compound of magic, which is not a false statement, but then all the other religions have also have the magic aspect. Then he says that compound of magic and that it is full with the orthodoxy, superstition, okay, and abominable rites like physical torture and animal sacrifice has replaced the place of worship. So physical torture and animal sacrifice, then when it comes to animal sacrifice, so you will be studying about it from the time of the Vedic period, okay. So Vedic period onwards there was indiscriminate animal sacrifice that is to be criticized, and which was there. Then after that he has written that animal sacrifice and physical torture has taken the place of the worship. So physical torture, this is also true that physical torture is a part and process of the religion. And actually he was commenting on those practices. For example, that in India people keep 9-day fast in Navaratra. So to him it is a physical torture, but the similar can be said about the other religions also. 1 month fast in the Islam, it is also a physical torture. Then according to him, then after there are some people, he might be true in his observation that there are some people who take some extreme measures. So for example, you must have seen that some people are going to the religious places and some people are not walking but just laying down on the floor and then standing and then laying down on the floor. So out of 1,000, if one person is doing so, we cannot generalize it. There would be some people who will be doing it. For example, there would be some UPSC aspirant who want to clear the exam and they'll be burning camphor in the hand. Does it mean that entire class burns camphor in the hand? No. So this generalization, okay, this generalization was not right, which he did. It happens, okay, it happens. But then he generalized it, and you can say that universalized it on the entire class of the Hindus. So anyways, but his observation and his comments were taken hand in hand by the world community, and in fact time and again British have used this particular statement of the Max Weber to justify that Indians are not a civilized lot. So let's start with it. Mention, okay? So first you start, दोनों ही quotations लिख लो, you write. In 1828, Rajaram Mohan Roy wrote, mention, the present system of religion adhered, so spelling you can see here, adhered to by the Hindus, is not well calculated to promote their political interest, then unquote, and then you write, at this time Max Weber also noted, and you write quote unquote, in quote unquote you mention, Hinduism had become compound of magic. Animism, compound of magic, animism, superstition, and abominable, you can see spelling here, and moreover RITES, abominable rites like animal sacrifice and physical torture. Has replaced the place of worship. Then So this is what is their comment. Let's see the comparison. So we'll start with the comparison. So comparison is basically between the two type of the movements or social movements which are there. So reform movement and the revivalist movement. So create a table and then one side you write reform movement and here you write revivalist movement. Revivalist movement. So reform movement and revivalist movement. Now understand that what are these movements. So first of all, reform movement. When it comes to the reform, so basically those people who were proponents of the reform movement, what they are going to say. So they said that there are some aspects in the present system of religion then which are not justified on the values of the human dignity, rationality, then and social equality. So they are saying that there are some practices in Hinduism or basically any religion. Okay, we are not quoting it with the Hinduism or Islam. Here it is combined one. So the adherents of the reform, they maintained that there are some practices which are not justified on the values of the rationality, human dignity, and social equality. And these practices are highly discriminatory, so they need to be changed. There is a need of change in these practices. So this is what they want, that they are asking for. They are actually voicing for reform in the certain aspects of the religion. On the other hand, revivalist movement, what they say that those people who are the proponents of the revivalist thing, they maintain that due to the influence of many external things, which includes the rule in the medieval period, so as the British rule, and because of this external influence, many such practices are diluted. So original religion is in the past, according to them. Original religion is in the past. The present religion has been diluted. So they want to revive the old practices then and discard the new changes. So this is what is one basic difference. And you will find reform movements in all the religions, revivalist movement also in all the religions of that time. Then after, when we talk about that from where these ideas are coming, so majority of the proponents of the reform movement, they were English educated people then, and they had exposure of the Western education. So they maintained that it is the Western education from which they were inspired from the ideas of the rationality then, and they also maintain that Western education is the full of the rationality which is guiding them for the reform movement. But when it comes to the revivalist part, so they maintained that, as you say, that they actually countered the reformist, that rationality is not the core of the West. It is not the preserve of the West. Then, so rationality is not the preserve of the West, but in fact, when we look at the Indian tradition, so Indian literary tradition, rationality can be very much found in the Indian tradition, literary tradition of the Upanishads then, and in the Vedas also. So they counter their view of rationality that is limited to the Western education. They are saying that it is already there in India. Then, so you will have to see. There are a few more differences, but we'll write stage wise. So mention in the reform, you write. So in this you write the exponents of reform movement. Exponents of reform movement wanted changes in some aspects of the religion, wanted changes in some aspects of the religion which were not justified, justified on the parameters of social equality, human dignity, and rationality. and rationality. And rationality. And then in revivalist part you write, the adherents of revivalist movement, the adherents of revivalist movement highlighted dilution in many aspects of religion, due to external influence, full stop. They maintained the original religion was in the past, and they stressed on the revival of past practices. Then, so this is what is about the revivalist. Then let's come to the reformist movement, and in this you write. So second point in the reformist, mention majority of the reformers were inspired from Western education. Majority of the reformers were inspired from Western education. Then mention they maintained that Western education is full of rational values. Western education is full of rational values. In revivalist side you write, they countered reformist. They countered reformist and said that rationality is not the preserve of West. Rationality is not the preserve of the West. And it can be, not can be, ruk jana, and it is very much there, and it is very much there in the Indian literary tradition. It's very much there in the Indian literary tradition. For example, Ved and Upanishad. Then, so, and we'll be reading about these all stuff, Ved and Upanishad in art and culture. Then now understand, after this, so when it comes to their approach, that what kind of approach the two lots are going to follow. So the reformist, they are going to follow the legal approach. Then, so legal approach of the reform, and moreover, they will not be following the legal approach, but they will be following the approach we will call bottom-up approach, and they will be following top-down approach. Just let me write it. So reformists are going to follow top-down approach, and they are going to follow so let's differentiate between the two. Top-down. What is top-down? It's basically legal. So top-down means that only, last class also we discussed the same thing, that only few people will be deciding that what is good for you. Then you don't have a voice. Then you will not decide that what is good for you. Only few people will be deciding that what is good for you, and then it is imposed on you through a legislation, through a forceful kind of thing, then through some order. So, and if you're not following, so then it may attract some sort of punishment. Then, so that is what is the the top-down approach, meaning that consensus of all the people, all the stakeholders involved is not taken. So they followed this kind of thing, legalistic approach or top-down approach. Now they followed bottom-up approach, meaning that what everyone wants. For example, let's suppose there is some decision is to be taken, and decision regarding that will we be writing the assignment today, and then the survey is made in the class. So then majority of you agreed that there must not be any assignment in the class. So then the decision is taken, okay? That bottom and then up approach is coming to me that ki theek hai chalo tum log ko nahi pasand aa raha hai, to fir then there would be no assignment today. So you got getting it, that it is you who is counted in this. The masses are the one who is counted in this one, but not in this one. So you tell me that which will be more sustainable reform? Bottom up approach, okay? So bottom up approach. And in fact, many a times whenever that social reforms are in question, so it is always governments must also prefer it in a bottom up approach way, and then they must go ahead with the reform. See, the question is not that this reform is bad. The question is that people will not accept it when this reform is not that it is not coming through the people. So people will not accept it in their hearts and minds, and that's how. So reform to ho jayega legal way, lekin people will break it time and again. So later on when we are going to talk about Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and then we'll mention Hindu Widow Remarriage Act of 1856. So though it was a legal way, okay? That legal way Hindu Widow Remarriage Act it became a reality, but then what doesn't become reality, that many widows getting married. It never became a reality. Only few chunk of the people were getting married because people have not accepted it in the society. So until and unless it is accepted in the society, it will never become a reality just through a legislation. So this is what was there. Now you tell that किस में ज़्यादा लोग होंगे, which will have more broader social base. This one, okay? So they will be having a more broader social base, and they will be having a very narrow social base. In fact, the social reformer of this time, at what we mentioned in the second place, that they were Western educated people, and there were very few people who were Western educated. So obviously their followers were also very less. And in fact, I'll tell you one thing, when Raja Ram Mohan Roy initiated the change, so change is always resisted. In fact, we also introduced some changes in our lives, and we ourselves resist it for some time until and unless it is becoming a reality. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy, when he initiated the change, people started to call him psycho. People started to call him mad. Then he was given so many other names then, but then he continued with that. And then after his life was over, people realized that what he was saying, that was not madness, that was not a psychological mental stuff, but that was actually needed in the society. So this is how the things happen. So very less people were there in this one, narrow social base, and here very wider social base. So mention, you write. पहले reformist में लिखो, ठीक है? They preferred top-down approach of the reform. Top-down approach of the reform, that is legal, that is legal path of reform. That is legal path of reform. In this side you write, they followed bottom up approach of reform. Bottom up approach of reform. Then बस उतना ही लिख के छोड़ दो. Then next you write, in reform you write, that is self-explanatory. So mention reform में, many a times they enlisted the help of British authority. Enlisted the help of British authority. They were not anti-imperial in nature. They were not anti-imperial in nature. Then revivalist side, you write, mention. They never enlisted help of British government. They never enlisted help of British government, and they were highly anti-imperialist, in nature. Anti-imperialist in nature. Done. Then next you write, in reform you write, they enjoyed a very narrow social base. They enjoyed a very narrow social base. And on the other side you write, they enjoyed a very broader social base. Very broader social base. Done. Then one last difference that I need to maintain in this one, and then we'll go into the second comparison. Okay? So the last difference is basically when it comes to reform movement. So they promoted Western education. Okay? They promoted Western education. On the other hand, revivalists promoted cultural nationalism. So this is a new term which we are using in the class, cultural nationalism. Will you try to define it, that what is cultural nationalism? Break करके define करो ना. See, not all the time you will be getting the definition. Okay? But then you will have to apply your own logic that how we can define the cultural nationalism. Yes? Ideologies. Okay. And then? Yeah. So you all are right up to certain extent that it is based on the common culture of an area. Okay? That what is nationalism? What is nation? What actually, do you know the definition of the word nation? What does the word nation means? Many of you have pol science optional. है ना? बताओ. Group of people. What is that group of people? Do you agree with him? That nation is group of people? No. Tradition, culture will not come into the nation. So, see, अगर जो ट्रेडिशन कल्चर आता तो हम बात यूज ही नहीं करते कल्चरल नेशनलिज्म. ठीक है? नेशन इज द वर्ड विच इज डिराइव्ड फ्रॉम द लैटिन वर्ड नासी एंड इट मीन्स पीपल. ठीक है? सो ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल. सो in a particular geographical terrain, if some people are living together, so that is the group of people and they define themselves as a nation. But then when we infuse a particular culture in that area, so that's what is defined as the cultural nationalism, that when they identify on the basis of this group of people, when they identify themselves on the basis of a common culture, that is called as the cultural nationalism. Then, so now understand that what is cultural nationalism? Basically those practices, it is not just limited to that different religions, then so one religion, but it is also related to the different religion. So one particular area, Karol Bagh, okay, there are Hindus, Muslims, Sikh, and then all of them, but then we have a common culture. What is the common culture? Common culture, we can have a difference in the religion, but then at the time when it comes to the food, so we have a common food. Okay? We have the common preferences of the clothes, then we have the common many common things which we are using. So we are able to relate to each other. So in a particular geographical terrain, when group of people start to identify with a particular culture, so that is called as the cultural nationalism. And when you promote a cultural nationalism, so what you'll do, that those who does not belong to that culture, that geographical terrain, they must be thrown out of that area. So this is what is the meaning of the cultural nationalism. And in fact, when we have already written in this part that they were anti-imperial in nature. So anti-imperial, you understand that they are against the British. Itself is denoting that they will promote the cultural nationalism. Then, so you mentioned in the reform side, they promoted Western education. They promoted Western education for upliftment, for upliftment. For upliftment. Then mention, in the other side, you write, they promoted cultural nationalism. They promoted cultural nationalism. Cultural nationalism. Then, so do you want me to define? Chalo likh lo. What is cultural nationalism? So, on the basis of common cultural identity, on the basis of common cultural, brackets mein likhna ye, on the basis of common cultural identity, development of nationalistic aspiration, development of nationalistic aspiration is called as cultural nationalism. Is called as cultural nationalism. Then, so then this is what is about the basic difference between these two movements, but there is much more to see when we are going into the reforms one by one. So now another thing that I'm incorporating, and that is, so the next comparison is 19th century reform. You mention on one side 19th century reforms, and on the other side 20th century reforms. So 19th century reform and 20th century reforms. So now when it comes to this part, 19th century and 20th century. So understand that 19th century was the beginning of the reforms in India. And particularly in this age, in the modern age, 19th century was the beginning of the reforms. So when we look at the reformers of this time, okay, 19th century. So what we'll call, I'll use two words. Let me write first. Agents of change, and don't write, I'll just define it, and subjects of change. So when it comes to, okay, 19th century reform, agents of change, meaning that those people who are initiating the change in the society. So agents of change, and subjects of change, those who would be impacted from the change. So in the 19th century reforms, majority of the agents of the change belong to the upper section of the society. Okay? They belong to the upper section of society. We are not saying all of them. There are some exceptions. Then there are few people who did not belong to the upper section, but majority means more than 50%. But here in this case, actually here majority is more than 80%. So more than 80% of the agents of change, they belong to the upper section of the society. So if I have to take some name, so Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he was a upper section, Brahmin. Then Kesab Chandra Sen, Devendra Nath Tagore, then Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, they all are belonging to the upper section of the society. Then when it comes to subjects of change, meaning that those people who will be impacted, so who are the subjects of change? Mainly backwards. Then, so mainly backwards, those who are untouchables, those who are backwards, and also the women. Okay? So also the women. So there was a bit difference in the agent of change and the subject of change. But when we see the 20th century reforms, in 20th century reforms, majority of the reformers or agents of change, they belong to the backward section of society. And the impact of change, or basically the subject of change, beneficiaries were also from the backward section of society. So for example, that when we count the name of the people who were agent of change, can you tell some name? So T.M. Nair, P. Tyagraj, then they all belonging to the backward section. Then E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar Periyar, he was also belonging to the Annadurai, also belonging to the backward section. So as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, also belonging to the backward section of society. So majority of the reformers of this time, Sri Narayan Guru, they all belonging to the backward section of society. And their subjects of change, so they were also from the backward section of the society. So this is one basic difference. Now, another difference is theme of change. Okay? Theme of change, or ऐसे भी बोल सकते हो that theme of change or basically agenda of change. So when it comes to agenda or theme of change, it was limited in the 19th century. Beginning था तो obviously पहले ही दिन से सारे reform तो लोग बात करेंगे नहीं, ठीक है? So the agenda of change or the theme of change was limited to few topics or few issues. What are these issues? Can you count some of the important issues in the 19th century? For example, child marriage, ठीक है? Abolition of untouchability, upliftment of untouchables, then upliftment of women, then so widow remarriage. These were major issues or which people wanted to address at this point of time, or promotion of the Western education. But then on the other hand, the agenda of change or basically theme of change was very broader in the 20th century reform. So what are the agenda of change? In fact, in the later phases, you will be learning about these all personalities, Dr. Ambedkar and then his contribution, and then not just him, but all the other names which I have taken. So they are not asking for, only asking for, there would be upliftment of the slaves, there would be upliftment of the untouchables. Their demands are not limited to it. They want equal political right, equal citizenship right, right to vote, right to property, then right to education, right to entry to the temple, right to access to the public institutions. Then, so they are demanding much broader reform rather than just limited reforms. Then, so the agenda of change was much broader at this point of time. And in fact, एक बात हमेशा ध्यान रखना that why we talk about what is the connection of the socio-religious reform with the Indian Constitution. Can you establish a link between the two? Think about it. Think about it. Do you get, अभी जैसे हम मैंने यहाँ पे we talked about that the agenda of change was very broader, then which includes equality. ठीक है? What kind of equality? Economic equality, political equality, social equality. Then and then same sort of rights, citizenship right, universal adult franchise, right to vote, right to property. Do you see somewhere in the Constitution? Where? Fundamental rights. You see it in the preamble also. Then you see it in the preamble also, you see it in the fundamental rights also. Then, so in the eyes of the Indian Constitution, we all are equal. We all have the equal opportunity. Okay? We all have the equal opportunity to access to the things. So basically, socio-religious reforms were a bigger awakening towards it, and it inspired many such greater values of the human dignity in the Indian Constitution. So you will have to remember this. Okay? That this, and if UPSC will have to ask a question, they will not ask you a very straightforward question. Very straightforward question कि 20th century reforms में क्या क्या हुआ, ठीक है? It will be a kind of a university or college exam question, but it will not be there in the UPSC exam question. They will always ask you to establish the link between the two. So if you actually open your mind regarding it, that this kind of question can be asked, your mind is a beautiful device. It itself will suggest you what to write and what not to write. Then, so now understand. So next part. So agenda of change was very broader. Then when it comes to the social base, so social base once again was very narrow in this part and it was very broader in this part. इतना ही लिखना है, इससे ज़्यादा की ज़रूरत नहीं है. So mention, you write. So 19th century reforms में लिखो. In 19th century, you write. पहले start with the majority of the agents of change belonged to the upper section of society. Done? Upper section of society, full stop. Then second point you write, उसी में लिखो, reform में लिखो, subjects of change were majorly backwards untouchables, and women. Then in 20th century reform you write, both agents of change and subjects of change both agents of change and subjects of change mainly belonged to belong to the backward section of society, mainly belong to the backward section of society, backward section of society. Then in reform side you write the agenda of change, the agenda of change was limited to few themes like agenda of change was limited to few themes like issue of child marriage, widow remarriage, upliftment of untouchables, women, and promotion of Western education, Done. Then other side you write. So other side में 2 पॉइंट को मैंने एक में क्लब कर दिया, ठीक है? तो you can just see that. Then other side you write agenda of change was very broader. Agenda of change was very broader. It included demands like equal political, economic, and social rights. They further demanded right to vote, right to property, access to public facilities, entry into religious institutions, right to education, etc. 19th you write, in 19th side you write agenda of change. No, sorry, no, agenda नहीं लिखो, ठीक है? They enjoyed very narrow social base. And on the other side you write they enjoyed a broader social base. Done. So this is what is about that, the major comparison that we needed to do in the beginning itself. Now there was one more question in the mains exam, just listen to it. The question was related to that, the question, I'm telling you the essence of the question, exact question I'll tell you later. So it said that when we look at the reforms of the 19th century and 20th century reforms were much more broader than, and basically 19th century reforms were insignificant in comparison to the 20th century reform. So how you justify, actually the question, the pattern was how you would justify that 19th century reforms were insignificant in the comparison to the 20th century reforms. Then now what kind of answer you would be writing in this one? That will you go ahead with the approach in which you will be demeaning the reforms of the 19th century? Will it be the case? So how you would be justifying that? How you will be, actually you tell me that what would be the approach of yours in this answer. हमें reforms पता है, अभी आगे भी हम लिखेंगे 19th में 20th में क्या reforms थे, but then how you will be approaching towards it. Yeah. Initiator, okay. 20th century. Good. What else? Yeah, please tell. बताओ, it's very easy. What he said, did you that किसी को सुनाई नहीं दिया actually. ठीक है. See, nine that एक ही कहावत है हिंदी में, ठीक है, सबने सुना होगा, बिल्ली के गले में घंटी कौन बांधे. And you'll not be writing this stuff, but just to understand, this is what is the 19th century reform. Okay, you used a very better word. What you said, that was right, but then resistance, okay, was there. That actually the opposition that the reformers of the 19th century reformers have seen, that was not the case for the 20th century reform. So as per, okay, that you will start your approach in this answer would be that the 19th century reforms were the foundation of the 20th century reforms. Then, so a bigger building, this building is visible to everyone, but nobody is seeing the foundation of this building. Then, and if the foundation is removed, there would be no existence of this building. This is exactly similar to the 19th century reforms and 20th century reforms. That 19th century reforms, they builded that particular foundation, that basic, okay, on which the future reforms further progressed on, and they further used that platform to go ahead with more agenda and more assertiveness. Then, so this way you will have to justify, and then you can tell about the themes ki isme kam the, usme zyada the, theek hai, but then in conclusion part it must be there. Then, so we'll give you some sort of question related to it in your assignment then, and I think we can frame, oh sorry, so we can frame a question related to it. ठीक है? किसी को लगी तो नहीं? It's all fine. So now let's go ahead with that reforms in the Hinduism. एक title लिख लो, reforms in Hinduism. So when it comes to reforms in Hinduism, we'll start with the very first organization in the beginning, and as you all know, the name of the organization was, so see the spelling which I'm writing. Since it is a Bengali organization created in Bengal, so Hindi mein to likhoge to it will be Brahma Samaj, but then they will be writing Brahmo Samaj. Then, so Brahma Samaj, and the creator of this Brahma Samaj was Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So first we will talk about him, and even the spelling of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, M-O-H-U-N. Oh, Ram, मैं भूल गया. No. So listen. So when it comes to Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he was in the services of the government. He was in the writership of the government. Then, and moreover, since he was in the writership of the government, which government? British government. So he had immense knowledge of many languages. It is said that he was well versed in 9 to 10 languages, then including Persian, including Bengali, including English. Then, so he was too good at all these languages. Then moreover, it has a benefit also because he can read in many languages then, and all the other important religions of the world. Then, so when it comes to Raja Ram Mohan Roy, what he did religiously, okay? So first of all, he's called as the pioneer of the Indian social reform, and what he initiated, it led to the beginning of the Indian Renaissance. Then moreover, what are his approaches? So he believed in the scientific approach. He believed in the scientific approach. He believed in the values of the rationality, human dignity, social equality. So these all are his ideas. Then moreover, when it comes to his belief in the God, so his belief in the God, he was subscribed to monotheism. What is monotheism? Worship of one God, belief in one God. Then, in fact, to prove his point that there is a one God, he translated some of the Vedas, then not all of them, but some Vedas and few Upanishads. Then 4 or 5 Upanishads he translated. So to prove his point that there is a monotheism, that's what he did. And that monotheistic God, he is referring Brahma. Okay? So Brahma as the ultimate reality. Then When it comes to his other religious work, so it is said that he deeply studied all the religions of the world, and then after he came up with a text, and the name of the text initially, basically it was written in the Persian language, and the name of the text was Tufat ul Muwahhiddin. Then, so Tufat ul Muwahhiddin, this was written in Persian, and then later on he released the English version of this particular text also. So the English version was, any idea? Gift to Monotheist. Gift to Monotheist. So he analyzed all the religions of the world in the light of the human dignity and rationality. Then, so this is one part. Then after, he also initiated or basically founded one organization, and name of the organization was Atmiya Sabha. This organization was created in 1815, and this organization has this agenda of the social reform. Moreover, he also released a magazine of social reform in Bengali language, and name of the magazine was Sambad Kaumudi. So this is the magazine in which he was regularly writing about the Sati Pratha, okay? That evils, the superstitious practices like Sati Pratha, and due to his persuasion, in 1829, British government has banned Sati Pratha in India. Then, it is in 1828 he founded a new organization, Brahmo Samaj. Initially, it was named as Brahmo Sabha, but soon after naming, it was renamed Brahmo Samaj. So this was in 1828. We'll talk about it, that what was the objective of this organization later on. So mention Ram Mohan Roy is considered as pioneer of Indian socio-religious reform. Or father of Indian Renaissance. I'll write. You can see the spelling. English is a funny language. Many a times what you write, you don't read the same thing. It's Renaissance, but then it is Renaissance. So you're aware about it. Same thing happened with me when first time I saw restaurant. I used to read restaurant. So we all have done it in this way, then that different things. So let's come back to this one, but this is the origin of this word is basically in the French word then, so that's why Renaissance. Then mention father of Indian Renaissance. After it you write that Ram Mohan Roy believed in scientific approach, rationality, social equality, and the values of human dignity. Full stop. He was subscribed to the worship of one God. He was subscribed to the worship of one God. In brackets you can write monotheism. Full stop. Then mention to prove his point, he translated some of the Veds and few Upanishads. Done. Then mention he wrote a very famous text, Tufat ul Muwahidin. You can see, sorry, it's written here. So Tufat ul Muwahidin, very famous text, Tufat ul Muwahidin in Persian language. And brackets में लिख लेना, English version is Gift to Monotheist in Persian language. Gift to Monotheist. And in this text he analyzed all the major religions of the world, in the light of rationality, justice and human dignity. Then, so this is what is about one part. Then you write, paragraph change करके लिखो, ठीक है? So to carry forward his social reform agenda, he founded Atmiya Sabha in 1815. Then mention he also released a reform magazine. In Bengali language. That is Sambad Kaumudi. It's written here. Then mention further after it. In this magazine, he regularly wrote about social evils like Sati Pratha. Due to his persuasion, British authority banned Sati Pratha in 1829. So now understand few more things we need to discuss at this point of time. So when it comes to his social reform agenda, what all things were included in it? Obviously, he was promoting the Western education. That is one thing. But then apart from the Western education, he was also in the favor of removal of the untouchability then. But he never talked about the abolition of the caste system. कुछ चीज़ें हैं जो ध्यान में रखनी है. That देखो, there are the things like widow remarriage, he is supporting, child marriage, he is against it. So these would be the common themes in majority of the places then. But then what is we are assuming, and that is not there, that is to be discussed. So most important that he never talked about the abolition of the caste system and he never promoted intercaste marriages. ठीक है? So अगर किसी prelims के question में if this is coming, that which of the following were the initiatives of the Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and if they say that he promoted intercaste marriages, that would be wrong then. So he never promoted, and the reason is basically context and the time in which he was. So the context and the time in which he was, if he starts promoting right from the beginning intercaste marriages, that would be a radical reform, very radical. But then, if we look at the today's time, it is not a radical reform. It is not a reform at all. Then today's time, it is perfectly normal that people are going ahead with the intercaste marriages. In fact, in today's time, the issues are even that the aspect of the interreligious marriages are also there. Then, and there are some issues, but issues are not out of the park. Then, the more concerned that parents of today's time, they are more concerned that their children must get married to the opposite sex. Okay? That is the concern. Then, but then now understand, after 20, 30 years, then what will happen? This will also change. This will also change. This will not be the issue in the society. So you will have to see the context. Then that in those contexts, it was a radical. But in today's context, it is not at all radical. So what is radical today may not be radical tomorrow. Then, and that's how the change happens. And you know, one more thing. We'll be reading about it. In fact, in Swami Vivekananda's topic, we'll be talking about this thing, that the only thing which is sustainable, the only thing which is going to survive, that is the change. So change is the only constant in the society. What was there in the past, that may not remain in the future if it is remaining in the same way. So it may lead to the extinction. It is not just about the biological things associated with the body or biological things associated with this planet Earth, but also the practices that we are observing, practices that we are going ahead in the society. So we'll further discuss about it then in Swami Vivekananda's topic. So now, he never promoted this part of thing. But then later on, when some other people would be there in the Brahma Samaj, they would be promoting it. Okay? They would be promoting it. So we'll talk about that. And who is that person? Kesab Chandra Sen. So let's talk about it after it. So Brahma Samaj was created in 1828. And in Brahma Samaj, so what was the basic purpose or the objective of the Brahma Samaj? So not only to carry forward the social reform agenda, but also at the same point of time to promote the charity, morality, benevolence in the society. So charity, morality and benevolence in the society. And one more thing, okay? That Brahma Samaj intended to worship, okay, the eternal, unsearchable and immutable God. Three words I have used: eternal, unsearchable and immutable God. So try to define it. What is eternal? Which God is eternal? हिंदी में बताओ, हिंदी में eternal का क्या मतलब होता है? Yes? Eternal like that? Yep. But then a proper Hindi word, anyone? Chalo, I'll tell you. That eternal means that Amar Ajar. ठीक है? Ajar, you understand? Never dies. Very good. Okay? So Amar Ajar, meaning that he's everywhere. And he is there constantly since the inception of the universe, and he is from the beginning to the infinite. That's the meaning. He is from the beginning to infinite. जब से सब कुछ था और जब तक सब कुछ रहेगा. That is Amar Ajar. Then, so eternal. Then unsearchable. Second one is very easy. Unsearchable. So basically the second word, in terms of the definition of the Brahma Samaj, it says that generally people go to the temple, people go to the mosque, church to find the God, but he is unsearchable. He is not there in the mosque, he is not there in the temple. So they are saying unsearchable, he cannot be searched. Then he is saying immutable. What is immutable? Then immutable, it's the origin word of this is, you're saying something, mutation. You understand what is mutation? Change of form, change of form. So can you tell that in religion, where is change of form mentioned? In all the religions. Incarnations, very good, exactly. So incarnations, then, and in fact in all the religions. So for example, that messenger of the God, then the prophet, then in Hinduism, that Lord Vishnu, 10 incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Then in Christianity, Jesus Christ, Messiah. Okay? So these are messenger of the God. So this concept, so they are saying that it is immutable. God is immutable, meaning that God does not take any form and he comes to the earth. Then according to them, that God does not changes his shape and form He is constantly similar and he never changed the form, comes to the earth in a human form, and then he does some sort of magic over here. So that's what they are saying, that God is immutable. So they promoted worship and adoration of this type of the God. So this is what is overall agenda of the Brahma Samaj. So mention Dr. Ram Mohan Roy, not Dr. Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, मैंने बिना इनको पढ़ाए PhD दिलवा दी, ठीक है. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy favored widow remarriage, comma, supported marriage after age of puberty, education of women, upliftment of untouchables, but he never discussed intercaste, he never discussed caste system, he never discussed caste system abolition and promotion of intercaste marriages. Then, so this is what is about his reform agenda. Then you mention in 1828, paragraph change करके, in 1828 he founded Brahmo Samaj. Then mention the objective of this organization was to promote worship and adoration of eternal, unsearchable and immutable God. Unsearchable and immutable God. Through this organization, he further wanted to promote charity, morality, and benevolence in the society. Charity, morality, and benevolence in the society. Then, so this is about the episode of the Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and I think in later Mughals itself we wrote that his death happened in Britain when he was sent to Britain by the second last Mughal emperor Akbar II, okay, for asking for his pension. There only his death happened. So after his death in 1831, there was a vacuum in the Brahma Samaj. Then the way it was supposed to popularize, it was not happening. Now finally in 1842, don't write, but just let me complete this part. So in 1842, one very prominent personality from the Bengal, he joined the Brahma Samaj. Then, and this prominent personality was Debendranath Tagore. So uh, it's a that they were the very rich and very powerful zamindar class of Bengal, and from which area? Bardhaman area. This is the family to which Rabindranath Tagore also belonged. Then, so Rabindranath Tagore, Satyendranath Tagore, okay, Abanindranath Tagore. So they all were belonging to this family only. So Devendranath Tagore, he actually, okay, founded one other organization in 1839. Okay, पहले this organization was there. The name of organization was Tattva Bodhini Sabha. Then, and through Tattva Bodhini Sabha, he wanted to promote two things. Okay, that he emphasized on the importance of the Western education, but at the same point of time, he also emphasized on the traditional learning. So he was a blend of the Indian Western thought. Now, in 1839, he has founded this organization. 1842, he joined Brahma Samaj with his entire cadre of the followers, and he infused a new life into the Brahma Samaj. Then, once again, when he's here, he started to work like Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Whatever the social reform agenda of Raja Ram Mohan Roy was there, he started to promote it. Then, during this tenure of the Devendranath Tagore, another person, okay, Kesav Chandra Sen. So we'll talk about him elaborately. He joined Brahma Samaj in 1858. So we'll mention about him later. First you write. So start with a name. पहले नाम लिख लो, ठीक है, as a title. Devendranath Tagore. So mention about him. He founded Tattva Bodhini Sabha. He founded Tattva Bodhini Sabha in 1839. Tattva Bodhini Sabha in 1839. And mention, he was a blend of Indian Western thought who promoted traditional learning along with modern Western education. Full stop. In 1842, he joined Brahma Samaj. 1842, he joined Brahma Samaj and infused a new life in this organization. Full stop. Infused a new life in this organization. Just wait 1 minute. अब लिख लो. So some of you have not written correctly, that's why I have written. Then mention, he started to work on two fronts, FRONTS. He started to work on two fronts, and then number 1 you write. Social reform agenda initiated by Ram Mohan Roy. Social reform agenda initiated by Ram Mohan Roy. Number 2, to criticize proselytizing activities of Christian missionaries. It's written on board, you can see the spelling. we are using this word for the conversion. ठीक है? The conversion activities of the Christian missionaries. Then, so this is what he was doing. Now in 1858, Kesab Chandra Sen, he joined the organization. Listen about him. So Kesab Chandra Sen, as compared to the reforms of that time or the context of that time, ठीक है? So पैसे ज़्यादा हो गए हैं लग रहा है तुम्हारे पास. So as compared to the context of the time and the society of the time, his thought process was radical then, and what he started to promote. So very first thing, he believed in one more keyword I'm writing, cosmopolitanization. Okay? So what is this cosmopolitanization? Understand? So what is this cosmopolitanization? He started to say that there is a truth in all the religions. Okay? We need to incorporate all the teachings of all the religions. Basically all the good teachings of all the religions. Then, so that is cosmopolitanization, meaning that incorporate teachings of all the good teachings of all the religions. But then people will not accept it. Okay? People will not accept it, that why in my religion I will incorporate other practices. Then, so that is one thing. Then another thing, that he was highly critical to the priestly class. Then, so he was highly critical to the priestly class. He was also very critical to the complex Vedic rituals. Then he was also very critical to the caste system. And then he started to promote intercaste marriages. So intercaste marriages. Now, looking at his radical approach, he was expelled from Brahma Samaj in 1865. And after getting expelled, he created another organization, Brahma Samaj of India. Okay? So Brahma Samaj of India in 1865 he created. But then his life is mired with many controversies. Then, so it was mired with many controversies, and we can better say that he was a hypocrite. Then why? In 1878, the person who was against the complex rituals of the Hinduism, the person who was against the child marriage, the person who was supporting widow remarriage. Now, in 1878, he married his minor daughter, just 12 years old, his minor daughter to the minor prince of the Cooch Bihar. Okay? And this marriage was performed with all the orthodox Hindu rituals. This was a kind of, as you can see, that two personalities, that in his speeches he is different and practice he was different. So that is the time majority of his followers, they left him and they went on to create another organization, that is Sadharan Brahma Samaj. So mention Kesab Chandra Sen as a title. Kesab Chandra Sen. So in this you write, he joined Brahma Samaj. He joined Brahma Samaj in 1858. In 1858. Then mention, he was very good at oratory skill. What is oratory skill? Speaking. Speech देना अच्छा आता था इन्हें. Oratory skill. Then mention after it, as compared the context of that period, as compared to the context of that period, his thought process was very radical. His thought process was very radical. He promoted, after full stop, he promoted cosmopolitanization. You can see the spelling which I have written on board. So cosmopolitanization, you can change Z with S. I have written Z, you can write S. Cosmopolitanization. And brackets mein likho, what is this? to include the teachings of all the religions, to include the teachings of all the religions, bracket closed. He promoted cosmopolitanization. He was highly critical to caste system, comma, child marriage, orthodox Hindu rituals, etc. Then he started supporting intercaste marriages. Then mention, due to his radical approach, he was expelled from Brahma Samaj. In 1865. He was expelled from Brahma Samaj in 1865. Full stop. Then mention, as such, he founded Brahma Samaj of India. In 1865. Later, in 1878, he married his minor daughter. With the minor prince of Cooch Behar. You can see the spelling of Cooch Behar. Minor prince of Cooch Behar, with all the orthodox Hindu rituals. Full stop. At this time, majority of his followers left his organization and went on to create Sadharad Brahma Samaj. Brahma Samaj. So this is what is about this particular Brahma Samaj organization. So we have seen this particular topic in quite detail. Let's move to the next one, which is, so you write a title, Young Bengal Movement. So listen, it was initiated by Young Bengal Movement was initiated by an Anglo-Indian Henry Vivian Derozio. Okay, so Anglo-Indian Henry Vivian Derozio. Moreover, when it comes to Derozio, he was very young and he was a professor in the Hindu College at Calcutta. Okay, so he taught at the Hindu College in Calcutta in between 1826 to 31. Moreover, that he was highly inspired from the French Revolution and those ideas which were promoted in the French Revolution. So what were those ideas? Liberty, fraternity, freedom, then equality. So he promoted these ideas, and moreover, that he inspired his disciples from the ideas of the French Revolution. At the same point of time, his followers were called as Derosians. Then, what is important about him? The values that he inculcated in his disciples. So, not only he inspired his disciples from the ideas of the freedom, liberty, and equality, but then understand what are the important stuff. So, first of all, he inspired them to think freely. Okay? To think freely and oppose the authority. Okay? So to think freely and oppose all the authorities. Now understand, what do we mean by this? Think freely. What is think freely? Will you try? You are not trying to say, or you are not trying to understand the thing under somebody's pressure. You are not going to say the words of others under pressure, but you have your own analytical ability to analyze the things. You have a spine. You have your own stand. You are not just saying by your political inclination. You are not just saying because you are getting benefit from some others. Then you are able to differentiate between what is wrong, what is right, and not just what has been said to you. So this is what he is calling think freely, and this is what is to be promoted all the time. Many times this happens. Okay? I'm not giving you a kind of a preaching over here, but that is important because you are studying. See that newspaper session must have happened, and then moreover, I know that majority of you refer to the Hindu. Okay? And some of you refer to the Indian Express. Okay? So when you're reading these newspapers, now you tell me that the editors of these newspapers, do they change all the time? Okay? Do they change all the time? They don't change. And editors are almost fixed. So those who are writing the articles, there would be some people who are almost fixed. Then and then moreover, some more articles come time by time in editorials. Then so these people, after 1 month or so, that person is writing the article. Then and as we know that everybody has their own standing, okay, their own political inclination. If somebody says in this particular land that I'm completely politically neutral, that is farce. Then that's not a reality. And moreover, when you are opining your views in the newspaper, so then you have some sort of ideology. Maybe your ideology has some sort of truth. But then inclination on one side often leads to kind of indoctrination. So this is where you need to differentiate, that you must not be indoctrinated by the articles. You just search the facts. Okay? That what are the facts in this one. Then, and in fact, I'll tell you, I'm not naming the person, but if you see in the parliamentary debates, there are some people in the parliament from the different party, not from the treasury bench, but from the opposition parties, that if they will speak, so they will speak on the fact. They will not speak on any such fabricated thing. They will speak on the fact. And that's how anyone who is on the treasury bench, he comes under pressure. So that's how we need to operate, that we need to speak on fact. We need to search for the facts, and on the basis of the fact, you need to create your opinion. You just need not to be indoctrinated by somebody or getting influenced by somebody's opinion. So that is, you have to maintain that when you're reading the newspaper, be cautious on this end, that just don't go ahead with one type of the view. For example, if I start writing in one such newspaper in editorial, so my leanings, my inclination will be clearly visible. When you read my 10 articles, so it will be very much visible to you that where my inclination is there. So then you will have to be cautious in this regard. Okay? That totally जो भी newspaper में है उसको replicate मत कर देना अपने answer में. Just search for the fact and take your own stand. So let's come back to this. This is what he was also calling, that think freely, then, and oppose all the authority. Now understand, it is very important feature of a very well-functioning democracy, though India at that point of time was not a democracy, but then in any such system of the governance, if there is not a right opposition, so then that is a casualty in that particular society and that particular country. So a very robust opposition is required, then, which can ask the right questions to the authority, which must not ask only those questions which are related to कि ये road का नाम इनसे बदल के उनसे क्या कर दिया. It will not matter. It will not impact the life of the people. What will matter, that if some policy measures are there, and in these policy measures, if there is a leakage, if there is a corruption, if you're bringing the fact, if you're asking question on that, so that will impact the life of the people, not the changing of the name of one particular road to other road, उस पर अगर जो अपोजिशन सवाल उठाता है तो अपोजिशन के पास कुछ भी नहीं है बोलने के लिए. सो यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस थिंग. देन so here also he was saying the same thing, that oppose authority. Here opposing means that asking the right questions to the authority. Then he was also of the view that we must oppose all the superstitious practices and decadent customs of India, which are of no use. So those customs which are of no use, they must be abolished. And in fact, within a short period of time, he had a large number of followers, but he was very unfortunate. First, because of this, he was expelled from the college, and later on, what happened? He fell ill from dysentery, and then he died. So, dysentery is not a big disease at this point of time. I hope you know what is dysentery. Nahi pata? Diarrhea, at least you know. So, and it all happens because of one such bacteria, E. coli, Escherichia coli. Then, and at the same point of time, Escherichia coli is also a beneficial bacteria, as you know. Because if it is not there in your stomach, so there would be no formation of many of the vitamins. That it is vitamin B complex is all created because of the Escherichia coli. In fact, I'll tell you one advanced fact about it. You know insulin? Insulin is also formed from the Escherichia coli. Then, so it is a very beneficial bacteria, but sometimes that excess of anything is bad. And here also what happens, that when diarrhea, so excess of the Escherichia coli leads to the death. And at that point of time, there was no such remedy. So he died then. And after his death, his movement came to a complete halt. So mention, you're right. It was initiated by an Anglo-Indian. It was initiated by an Anglo-Indian, Henry Vivian de Rozio. Henry Vivian de Rozio. Then mention. After it, you write. He was highly inspired from French Revolution. He was highly inspired from French Revolution. Full stop. He taught at Hindu College. He taught at Hindu College in Calcutta. In between Hindu College in Calcutta, in between 1826 to 31. 1826 to 31. Then further you write. He promoted the ideas of French Revolution. Ideas of French Revolution, like liberty, equality, freedom, etc. Freedom, etc. Full stop. He inspired his disciples. He inspired his disciples to think freely. He inspired his disciples to think freely and oppose all the authorities, comma, ask the relevant questions, to the authority, and further oppose decadent customs of India. Decadent customs of India. Customs of India. Then he was expelled from college. He was expelled from college due to his ideology. Due to his ideology. Full stop. Then mention. Unfortunately, he died in a very young age. Unfortunately, he died in a very young age very young age, after which this movement came to a complete halt. This movement came to a complete halt. Brackets may just write one more word. So what you have written came to a complete halt. Then you write, his followers, brackets में लिखना, his followers were popularly known as Derosians. His followers were popularly known as Derosians. Then, got it? So the next topic is the Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. But then you can take break. Okay? After break, we'll start. So listen. See, I'm giving you beforehand information. I'll be taking the assignment test in the class tomorrow. So then be prepared for it. Okay? Revise whatever you have studied till this date. वैसे information नहीं देता हूँ, but दे रहा हूँ. And the type of question would be different. The way it will be conducted, it will be different. It will not be similar the way you have written the last assignment. Then, so revise whatever you have studied till this date, including the today's portion, what we are going to complete today. Okay? So let's move to the next one. Young Bengal movement we have written. So write the name of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. अच्छा, इसके जाने से पहले डू यू हैव स्पेस इन ब्रह्म समाज? एक बार पीछे जाके देखो, कुछ स्पेस है थोड़ा बहुत तुम्हारे पास? एनी प्लेस? जस्ट 2-3 ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नेम आई वांट टू ऐड. ठीक है, कहीं ऐड कर लो. ठीक है, सो फॉर एग्जांपल केशव चंद्र सेन में एक ऐड करना that in Kesav Chandra Sen, in 1668 he created Tabernacle of New Dispensation. This is the name of society that he created. 1868, sorry. It is 1868. So in 1868 he created Tabernacle of New Dispensation. Then one more I'll add, just give me 1 minute. You can add one more thing. He was also part of Indian Reform Association. He was also part of Indian Reform Association. And in Raja Ram Mohan Roy, just add one line. So in Raja Ram Mohan Roy, you mentioned he was founder of Calcutta. He was founder of Calcutta Unitarian Committee. Unitarian Committee. That's it. So Ram Mohan Roy was founder of Calcutta Unitarian Committee. And I'll just tell you about this thing, Tabernacle of the New Dispensation, which was created by Kesav Chandra Sen. In fact, this was a tradition in the Christian society. In Christian societies, with this name, Tabernacle Society, there were many tabernacle societies which existed in the Christian community, and they were all about the reforms in the Christian community. So then he created Tabernacle of the New Dispensation. This was associated with the Hinduism. Take it? And then Indian Reform Association he was associated with. But this was the organization which was created in after 1865. And then Brahma Samaj, not Brahma Samaj, Raja Ram Mohan Roy was the member of the Calcutta Unitarian Committee. So sometimes UPSC, what they do, that they ask some of the factual questions, some kind of very deeper details from these aspects which hasn't been asked previously in the exam. ठीक है? So remember it. इसको याद रखना. Maybe it could be a repeated question in the upcoming times. So then let's come to the next society. Ishwar, not society. Name you write Ishwar Chandra Vidya Sagar. Ishwar Chandra Vidya Sagar. So his name was Ishwar Chandra, but he was given title of Vidya Sagar by his alma mater, then meaning that his own university. So why he was called Vidya Sagar? Because he had immense knowledge of the Sanskrit, okay? Sanskrit language. Moreover, though he was very well versed in the Sanskrit language, that does not mean that he was not knowing the English. He was also very well versed in the English language. Then what else about him? So Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, when it comes to his contribution in the Bengali society, he is often regarded as the father of the Bengali prose. So father of the Bengali prose, in fact, he created the rules of the Bengali prose which is followed even till this date. So that is one part. Moreover, he was known for his education in Sanskrit language and his knowledge in the Sanskrit language. So because of it, many a times he was invited by the British authority to Fort Williams to impart the traditional Hindu education to the new recruits of the company. Why? Company employees were in the need of it because they will be in India, so they need to understand the Indian religion, Indian community. So he was often invited over there. Moreover, he was principal of the Sanskrit college. And at one point of time in his life, he also served as the secretary of the Bethune School. So while he was principal and the secretary of the Bethune School, so he promoted the girls' education. And his life was totally dedicated to the cause of the women. So he was the one who persuaded British authority for widow reform, okay, and widow remarriage act. As a result, 1856 was the chosen year in which Widow Remarriage Act, and which widow? Hindu widow. Okay? So one thing is to be noted that when we talk about majority of these reformers of this time, they did not commented on the other religions. They always commented, majority of them we are saying, they always commented on their religion, not on the other religion. So Hindu Widow Remarriage Act was passed in 1856. And moreover, when it comes to his reform magazine भी एक favorite topic है UPSC का, ठीक है? Very often UPSC ask a question about the magazine, that this magazine was released by whom and what was the nature of the magazine. So his magazine was Som Prakash. Then, so mention, you write, he had immense knowledge of Sanskrit language. He had immense knowledge of Sanskrit language. Sanskrit language. Then mention, he was often invited to Fort William. He was often invited to Fort William to impart Sanskrit education, to the new recruits of the company. Full stop. He created more refined rules of Bengali prose. Prose. I hope you know prose and poems. So Bengali prose. Then you write, he is often regarded as father of Bengali prose. Full stop. He served as secretary of Bethune School. You can see the spelling of Bethune. And year also you can write 1849. secretary of Bethune School, and principal of Sanskrit College. Principal of Sanskrit College, 1851. Then mention in both the capacities. In both the capacities. In both the capacities, he promoted girls' education. He promoted girls' education. Full stop. He dedicated his entire life. He dedicated his entire life for upliftment and emancipation. For upliftment, you can see the spelling of emancipation here. Emancipation of women. Upliftment and emancipation of women. He tried to ameliorate. He tried to ameliorate their condition. He tried to ameliorate the condition of Hindu widows, ऐसे लिखना. He tried to ameliorate the condition of Hindu widows through legal route. Through legal route. Full stop. He approached British authority. He approached British authority in this regard. In this regard, as such, Hindu Widow Remarriage Act. As such, Hindu Widow Remarriage Act was passed in 1856. In 1856. Then you write the name of his magazine. एक last line लिख लो. His social reform magazine was known as Som Prakas. His social reform magazine was Som Prakas. Got it? So now, after it, so this is about the Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Now we can discuss the next organization, which is important in this period when these all people are there. So you write Arya Samaj. Arya Samaj. So we have moved from Bengal. We'll come back to Bengal once again when Swami Vivekananda's topic we are going to discuss. After this we'll discuss. So let's understand about the Arya Samaj. Okay? So Arya Samaj was founded by an Hindu ascetic Dayanand Saraswati, okay? Or Hindu sannyasi Dayanand Saraswati. So originally this organization was founded in Bombay, but then he shifted the headquarters to Lahore in 1875 itself. Now when it comes to Arya Samaj, so Arya Samaj has a very that different kind of admixture of the reform. I'm using the word admixture. What does it mean? That at a point it seems to be a revivalist movement, but then it also emphasized on the Western education. So not only the revivalist movement, but then at the same point of time, they will also be voicing for the modern education. Okay? So it is an admixture of the revivalist plus the Western education. So understand. So what Dayanand Saraswati has to say about the Hinduism? He said that the present system of Hinduism has been diluted. Okay? It is diluted. What are the reasons? So he said the reasons are many. The most important is the dominance of the priestly class. So dominance of priestly class. And then what else? He is also attributing this dilution to one of the Hindu religious literature, Purana. Okay? So one of the Hindu religious literature, Purana. So complex Vedic rituals, dominance of priestly class and the Puranas. And he said that he said that the original Hinduism, okay, original Hinduism lays in the Veda. It is there in the Vedas. And then he gave a mantra also. And what is the mantra? Go back to Vedas. Right? So go back to Vedas. But then at the same point of time, when he is talking about the revival of the old Vedic practices, he is also talking about one more thing, a proselytizing activity. And what is this proselytizing activity? It is called as Suddhi movement. Suddhi movement. So what was this Suddhi movement? He said that it is an attempt, or basically Suddhi movement was an attempt to bring back those Hindus in the fold of the Hinduism who have converted to Islam or Christianity in medieval and the pre-British period. Then, so it is an attempt to bring back those Hindus who have converted to other religions in the medieval and also in the pre-British period. So this is Suddhi movement. But then he had to face opposition at this point of time because of this conversion movement. Moreover, after him, this organization was followed, carried forwarded by cadre of his followers. And these followers, they are further going to emphasize on the education part. So we'll talk about it. Then, in fact, one of the very big role of this organization was in the publication of many of the religious scriptures of India. So for example, since they were emphasizing on the Veda, importance of the Vedas, so they not only translated but published the Vedas in many languages. Then, and as far as their social magazine is concerned, so Satyarth Prakash was the most famous one, but then they created or they came up with the many other social reform magazines. So one by one we'll be writing those names. So mention, this organization was founded by an Hindu ascetic Dayanand Saraswati. Dayanand Saraswati in 1875 at Bombay. In 1875 at Bombay. Then mention an Hindu ascetic Dayanand Saraswati at Bombay. But soon he shifted the headquarters to Lahore. Then mention, he was highly critical to dominance of priestly class. He was highly critical to dominance of priestly class, complex Hindu rituals, and influence of Puran literature, Purana, Puran literature on Hindu society. Then mention, according to him, these influences diluted the original tenets of Hinduism. Diluted the original tenets, TENETS, tenets of Hinduism. This is E, not A. TENE, tenets of Hinduism. Then mention, he emphasized on the importance of Veda. He emphasized on the importance of Vedas, which has the original teachings of Hinduism. He gave a mantra go back to Veda. He gave a mantra, go back to Vedas. Go back to Vedas. Then you write, paragraph change करके लिखना. He also initiated Suddhi movement. He also initiated Suddhi movement. And in brackets you can write, it is a proselytizing movement. This time I will not write the spelling. You have already written, कल भी लिखा था, आज भी लिखो. So spelling of proselytizing activity. Done? Then mention after it. He wanted to bring back those Hindus back into the fold of Hinduism, who have converted to other religions, in medieval and pre-British period. Then, so this is one part. Just understand. So then, as we mentioned that they released many such reform magazines, and the three reform magazines are important. So the very first was Veda Bhashya, second was Veda Bhashya Bhumika, and the most important was Satyarth Prakash. Then after it, there one of very important contribution was the translation and the publication of many Hindu scriptures, particularly the Vedas. But then, after the death of Dayanand Saraswati, this was carried forwarded by his disciples, okay? And the two outstanding disciples were Swami Hansaraj and Swami Shraddhanand. So, under the guidance of the Swami Hansaraj, then there was emphasis on the Western education, okay? That there must be Western education along with the traditional Hindu education. And to promote this idea, they went ahead with the creation of Dayanand Anglo-Vedic College and Schools, then DAV schools and colleges. So the first DAV school was created at which place? Lahore in 1886 under the guidance of the Swami Hansaraj. I hope that many of you must be from DAV college then. So English and the traditional medium goes hand in hand. And then in 1901, another disciple of the Swami Dayanand Saraswati was Swami Shraddhanand. He emphasized that he will not go in the direction of the English education, and he created Gurukul Pathsala at Haridwar in 1901 to impart the traditional education in the Sanskrit medium. So mention, you write. They released three important social reform magazines, and you write the names. Social reform magazines, that is, so number one was known as Veda Bhashya, number two Veda Bhashya Bhumika, and number three is Satyarth Prakash. Satyarth Prakash. Then चाहो तो ब्रैकेट्स में लिख लो, Satyarth Prakash was the most famous one. And then in this you write Arya Samaj also contributed towards translation and publication of Vedic literature. and publication of Vedic literature. Then mention in the later times, Arya Samajist immensely contributed. Arya Samajist immensely contributed towards the spread of education in India. Immensely contributed towards the spread of education in India. Full stop. Progressive Arya Samajist like Swami Hansraj. Progressive Arya Samajist like Swami Hansraj established Dayanand Anglo-Vedic school, Dayanand Anglo-Vedic School at Lahore in 1886. Then in this school, modern scientific education was taught along with the traditional education. Then paragraph change. Then once again you write conservative Arya Samajist like Swami Shraddhanand. Conservative Arya Samajist like Swami Shraddhanand founded Gurukul Pathsala at Haridwar in 1901. To impart traditional Sanskrit education. So this is what is about Dayanand Saraswati and his organization Arya Samaj. Then it's still a very relevant organization. It's still a very popular organization, and in fact, large number of people many a times they refer to the methods of the Arya Samaj. Okay? I hope you must be aware about it. Many a times that, for example, that death rituals they are performed according to Arya Samaj. In fact, there are marriages which are popular with Arya Samaj. So let's move to the next organization. Mention Ramakrishna Mission. And the personality who is associated with it, Swami Vivekanand. But then first we need to talk about his guru. And who was his guru? Ramakrishna Paramhans. Okay? So now, this organization was named after Ramakrishna Paramhans. And moreover, who was Ramakrishna Paramhans? So he was a priest in Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. In fact, this is a very popular temple in today's time and on the banks of river Hooghly. So he was priest in the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. Moreover, when it comes to Ramakrishna Paramhans, so he has immense sympathy for the suffering of the human beings. Then, and moreover, he often maintained that service to the mankind is the service to the God kind. He gave a mantra at this time, and what is the mantra? Yatra jiva tatra siva. Yatra jiva tatra siva. So this is the mantra he gave. What does it mean? The same thing. Service to the mankind is the service to the God kind. Jahan that there is a jiv, living being, there is a God. Okay? So wherever there are the living beings, there is a God. Moreover, when it comes to some of the that important standings of Ramakrishna Paramhans, so he always maintained that we must respect all the religions. Then, so we must respect all the religions, and he always also maintained that there is a utility of all the religions. But then, one more discussion at this point of time, which was in the society, was related to idol worship. So he maintained that idol worship must be there. And he further went on to say that idol worship, why he is favoring idol worship, it's not as such that there is a god in the idol, but then he maintained the purpose of the idol worship or idol is that to evoke spiritual response. Spiritual response. Now understand, he had many valid questions to the people that if there is no God in the idol, similarly, if there is no God in any religious place also. Okay? If there is no God in the idol, so how come he will be there in the any religious place? So he said that these institutions, religious places, okay, of all the religions, church, mosque, temple, everything, okay, and these, what are they meant for? Because once you go to the religious place, once you are in front of the idol, okay, so it evokes a spiritual response in you that you must refine your thoughts. You must put your dedication towards the God. You must remember Him. So it is just creating a new response in your mind and your body and in your heart that you must purify yourself, your thought process, your thinking, and everything. It's not like that there is a God in it, but then the process is important. So that's what he said at this point of time. And it seems to be a very logical thing. That very logical thing that not often there is a God in that particular idol. So these ideas of his were inspiring some of the people of that time, and one of the most important person was Narendranath Dutt. Then, so original name of Swami Vivekanand was Narendranath Dutt. And let's talk about the Narendranath Dutt. So Narendranath Dutt, right from his childhood, he was interested in study of the religion. He deeply studied Hinduism, and he also studied all the other philosophical systems of the world. But he was not satisfied with his own learning, and he only became satisfied when he found his guru. So when he found his guru, and that guru was the Ramakrishna Paramhans. Now, under his guidance, he is going to further achieve many such great heights. And one of the biggest achievement of the Narendranath Dutt was his participation in All World Religion Conference 1893 at Chicago. And in this particular conference, the way he has given the speech, the way he has importance, that he has emphasized on the importance of many of the Oriental values, it heralded him as the modern monk of the Hinduism. In fact, people started to call him modern preacher of the Hinduism, modern monk of the Hinduism. So we need to understand that what exactly he said, few things in this particular council that made him the modern preacher of the Hinduism. So we'll talk about it. But first you write a little bit about the Ramakrishna Paramhans. So you write, mention, Ramakrishna Paramhans. Ramakrishna Paramhans was a priest in Kali temple, at Dakshineshwar. Then mention Dakshineshwar. He dedicated his entire life. For the upliftment of humanity, and provide relief to human suffering. Human suffering. He emphasized on respect towards all the religions. Then mention, he often maintained service to mankind is the service to God. He gave a popular mantra. So you write this mantra, Yatra Jiva Tatra Siva. Yatra Jiva Tatra Siva. Yatra Jiva Tatra Siva. Then mention after it, full stop. He also believed in the utility of idol worship. To evoke spiritual response. Then, so paragraph change karo, then mention Narendra Nath Dutt was his favorite disciple. Mention, from his childhood, Narendra Nath was interested in deep study of Hinduism and all the philosophies of the world. But he could not find solace. SOLACE. Solace until he met Ramakrishna Paramhans. But he could not find solace until he met Ramakrishna Paramhans. Then mention in 1893 he participated in all world religion conference at Chicago. With his powerful speech, he inspired all the participants. He emerged as modern preacher of Hinduism in this conference. So let's talk about that, what he mentioned, few of the things which he has advocated in this particular council. Okay? So now understand the very first quotation of his, okay? That very first part of his speech was related to the change, and what he said, that motion is the law of the life. And that stagnation results into degeneration. So now understand what we started little early, we need to discuss it over here. So there are some facts, ठीक है, and I hope you know what is fact, ठीक है, that one that cannot be changed. One of the fact is the change. So change is the only constant in the universe. That one, and in fact there is a evolutionary fact when you read the that evolutionary history of the earth, or basically related to the evolution and the ecology, environment, origin of earth, everything. So it says that change is the only constant. Then one that does not changes becomes extinct. So for example, that in the evolutionary history of the earth, dinosaurs, then they did not change, and that's why they became extinct. Then so there are many such biological species which did not change and they became extinct. In fact, when we talk about the humanity also, there were many such human species which did not existed and basically they became extinct. So let me tell you some interesting facts about the human evolution itself. We are going little off from the track, okay, for this discussion. So do you know any such name of the early human beings? That how we evolved? What is that? Tell me the names. Oh. Yeah, these are the names that we gave on the basis of that what were the facial features and then how the body was there. So that's right. Ramapithecus, okay, one of the initial men, Neanderthal man, Peking man, Beijing man, Narmada man. There are many such names, but I'm going to the scientific aspect. So there were many such human species which came to reality, and we call human species as Homo sapiens. Then, but there are many such species of the Homo sapiens: Homo erectus, Homo habilis, then Homo sapiens. These three are important. So Homo erectus, Homo habilis, and Homo sapiens. Then, out of the many such species of the human beings, only the Homo sapiens survived. Do you have any ounce of idea that why Homo sapiens survived and why Homo habilis did not survive? Yep. No idea? Yes? Yeah, you're saying something. Kuch to batao. I'll tell you a very interesting fact about it. So there is one thing that when human beings actually evolved from the primates. You know the primates, just like we say that apes, monkeys, then so primates. So we evolved from the primates. One of the feature of the primates is that no speech ability, only screeching. So they can screech with some sort of kind of voices, but they cannot speak. So Homo habilis, okay, was exactly similar to it. Okay? On the other hand, Homo sapiens, they developed an attribute, and this attribute actually led them to survive. In fact, some of the big books of this time, they have mentioned it as that one of the attributes of the Homo sapiens that they loved gossip. Okay? So this is the word which is written, that they loved gossip and they loved gossiping about everything. Here the gossip word is mainly indicative towards their talkative nature. So they were able to communicate, they were able to talk, and when you are able to communicate, so you are able to express your feelings of survival, of your extinction, after your of your challenges, of everything that you are going through. Then so this talkative nature of the Homo erectus led them, Homo sapiens led them to survive better and better than all the other species. On the other hand, other species of the human beings, they did not had this, but yeah, so someone is writing, this is all mentioned in the new book Homo sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. Yeah, exactly, I'm quoting from there only, that, and this is the bestseller book then. So he has done one of the best research related to it. So this is what he mentioned, that this talkative nature was very helpful, and moreover over the period we have become more talkative then. So so change is the constant. Then he has further analyzed about why many other species in this universe, they did not survive because they were not changing. So in fact, on the continuous level, there is a change which is happening in our body. So for example, that it's a gradual change. It's a very slow change which you may not feel in our lifetime, but when we compare the last 10 generations, we can see the change. So for example, what is the change in the human body right now? Vestigial organs. Do you have the vestigial organs? There are many vestigial organs which are not there. So human beings have the tails, but that is not there. Then there is a one more thing, appendix. Okay, so appendix. So appendix has now become a vestigial organ, and then maybe after some point of time, and here some point of time, maybe 1,000 years. So after 1,000 years, there would be no appendix in your body. Now it is a vestigial organ, but then it will become completely extinct. what was the use of this appendix in the beginning? To digest cellulose. Then, but now we don't eat the grass. Then only netas eat grass. ठीक है, चारा घोटाला में. So we don't eat. So there is no need of digesting these all stuff. So कुछ टाइम के बाद ये खत्म हो जाएगा. Similarly, ठीक है, there is one in the evolutionary history of the humanity. Who is more advanced, men or women? Women, they are more advanced. And I'll tell you one reason. And I'm actually not off the track. I'm just imparting some information from the biological history. So why women are advanced? You tell me. First of all, not just on the basis of the hairs in the body, that they don't have the more hair then. So one reason is that the brown fat is more there in the women, which is more useful for coping up with the cold environment. Then, so cold environment. So they don't need more hairs to cope up with the cold environment. Another thing, you tell me that who has more hemoglobin? Then, men or women? Men. How much? 17.5, I think. 17 to 17.5. And what about the normal levels for the females? It is 13 to 14. Okay? 13 to 14. Is it good thing that women have less hemoglobin level? That is it good or bad? It's good thing. You know why? Optimum utilization of the things which are there in the body. So when your sustenance is less dependent on the more amount, so then you are more advanced. So that's why the women are much more advanced. One more thing I'll tell you. There are many such features. If you look at the medical history of the humanity, then, so medical history in the recent 20 years, if you just take into account that death, that the reasons of the death. So majority of the deaths in the world, they happen because of the cardiac arrest. Okay? So cardiac arrest, it's the major reason. And then when you further look into it, so you will see a very contrast over here. Cardiac arrest is very less with the females then, and it is very high. 90% with the males, only 10% with the female. So ऐसे ये मत सोचना कि लड़कों का दिल ज़्यादा टूटता है, लड़कियों का कम. Reason is, I'll tell you. Reason is the internal biology. Internal biology. Now, what is the very first basis of the creation of the life? The meeting of the sperm and the egg. Then, and when you look at the egg, so the egg formation which happens, you know what is the basic constitute of the egg? Cholesterol. Cholesterol. And the female placenta is fully loaded with the cholesterol. So cardiac arrest, one of the major reason of the cardiac arrest is cholesterol. Then, and cholesterol is a problem in the males, but it is not a problem in the females. Then, because cholesterol is a life-giving thing. Then, if there would not be any cholesterol, there would be no birth. Then there would be no formation of the egg, and there would be no support system to the child in the womb of the mother. Then, so cholesterol is a life-giving thing. Then, but at the same point of time, in men, since these processes are not there, so excess of cholesterol leads to the blockages. When there are excesses of the cholesterol, that goes to the placenta of the female. Then, and that's how it is not getting accumulated. It is not getting accumulated in your arteries and the veins. Then, so that's why there is less cardiac arrest in the females and more cardiac arrest in the males. So these are the evolutionary features. They are much more advanced. So if the female candidates get 10% extra marks than you, it is all in them. Okay? And that's why in the recent past, girls have topped the exam. So बुरा नहीं मानना, बुरा मानने के लिए तो मैं भी बैठ जाऊंगा. So so now you got it. So एक बात के लिए कितनी बात बताई मैंने. So the only thing which is constant, that is the change. And it's not just with the humanity, the human life, but also with the processes, traditions, and the cultures, everything. It needs to change with the time. You got it? Then next thing, what he said. So next thing he said that there is a need at this point of time to maintain the balance between the spiritualism of the East and the materialism of the West. And moreover, he is further saying that West can learn the spiritual processes from the Oriental countries, and in return, they can provide us the materialism. So now I just need to ask you what he meant by this word materialism. Materialism or material growth? बताओ, एक बार सोच के बताओ. Spiritualism, all of us know. Then, but what is this material growth? So, बताओ. Attracted to worldly things. But then why Swami Vivekananda would be saying that ki, we give us the things which we must be attracted? No. एक बार logic तो लगाओ. Why he's asking that West must give this materialism to the East and they must take spiritualism from the East. Development. Which development? Industrial. थोड़ा और उसको technologize करो. Modernization, technology. ठीक है, that's good. And so modernization, technology. In fact, material growth is all about the way West has eased the life, that is the life and is the life with the processes of the technological interventions, innovations, discoveries. So for example, that what is material growth? That this itself, that many people who are able to write on this response screen, able to see me, able to hear me, just because of that material intervention of the Western world, innovation of the Western world. In a hack of a minute, in a hack of a second, you dial to your parents, your girlfriends, boyfriends, and then you talk to them. It seems to be a magic. Then it is a magic. Then, and what is this? So this is the material growth of the West. In the COVID, if there would not have been online education, if there not have been online offline mode, so then education would have been the biggest casualty. It continued just because of the material growth of the Western world. Now, one question is that when we look at all the things which have eased our life, okay, which has eased our life and how we live, these all innovations and the discoveries, there isn't a single doubt about it. They were made in the Western world. So this pen, this mouse, this screen, take your pen with which you are writing, this computer, this camera, then satellite, antennas, TVs, this particular air purifier, this switch, electricity, count it. अपने अगल बगल जितना है देख लो, ठीक है? Was it made in India or made in the eastern part of the world? These all material progresses are the contribution of the West. So this is what he's saying, that because of this material growth which has happened in the West, they must extend it to the Oriental countries also. Then Oriental countries also. But in a way, then what he's saying, they also need to learn spiritualism. So his point is that too much running after the material things leads to the ruination of the peace of mind. Your peace of mind would be gone. You will be just running after the material things. You'll be just running after everything which is kind of technological. So then, in this way, you lost your connection with yourself. Then you are alienated with yourself. You are alienated with your own growth. Your growth is just limited to the material things. So then, you need to get some peace of mind. And that peace of mind from where you get from the Oriental countries, and basically those religions which are there in the Oriental countries, they are emphasizing on the spiritual processes. So this is what he has to say. But then there could be a contextual question related to it. Suppose if I ask a question to you, that if I give this a statement that the West needs to give material growth or impart the material knowledge to the East, and they need to learn, okay? They need to learn the spiritual processes from India. Give the contemporary examples related to this particular statement of the Swami Vivekananda. So now can you give me any contemporary example where it is applicable? Any contemporary example where it is applicable, where West needs to give something to the East and they need to learn something from the East? What is that? I'm not getting you. Okay, but I got it, that you're just talking about that the model of the Indian secularism and the French model of the secularism. There is a difference. but then I would not entertain this example. It could be right, but I want some best examples which is relevant. Yoga, okay? They can learn yoga from India, but what they will give to India? Which technology? Nuclear. कौन सा? वन नेशन वन अर्थ. देखो बोल देने से नहीं होगा, उसका जस्टिफिकेशन दो. चलो आई विल टेल यू, ठीक है? विल टेक लिटिल बिट ऑफ मोर टाइम इन टुडेस क्लास, बट देन आई विल टेल यू. सी द बिगेस्ट थिंग एंड once in a lifetime thing that we have seen is the pandemic itself. It was unfortunate that it came in our lifetime, and many of us, that many of you who just graduated from your colleges and your universities, you were unfortunate, I would say, because that you didn't got the opportunity to study in a college and you just missed the college life. This is one of the best stage of the life then. So this was highly unfortunate. Now understand why we are going to take the example of the pandemic. In the pandemic, because this speech was in US and then everything started in the US. So when the pandemic started, then what was the usual, normal response of the countries? So reaction of the countries is that lockdown. It all started with a lockdown. And then after the lockdown, what is the next intervention? Next intervention is the development of the vaccines. So the best vaccines which were invented at this point of time, these vaccines are mRNA vaccines. What is the benefit of it? So mRNA vaccines, they can be produced in a very shorter period of time. The normal vaccines which are created from the fragments of the virus, it takes a little bit of time. But then in mRNA vaccine, you have the genetic code, and with the genetic code, you can go ahead with the creation of the vaccines. So the best examples of this mRNA vaccines were Moderna and then BioNTech. I hope you know. Okay, you all know about it. So BioNTech and Moderna, where it was created? It was created in USA. And then what was the approach of the US and all the Western worlds? The rich countries were purchasing. What was the cost of these vaccines? The cost was 7,000 for one vaccine if an Indian is going to buy it. And moreover, it is very easy for the people who are there in the US or people who are there in the Western part of the world. They can easily purchase it. Moreover, the Western world, if it really wanted to stop this vaccine to further progress in the world, the very first thing they must have done, they must have transferred this technology to all the other countries. So technology of the mRNA vaccine, it is their very foolish thought that they will stop the virus from spreading in their country when all the people in the US and the Western world are vaccinated. Will it stop? Did it stop? We have seen what happened. Many new versions of the Omicron, Delta, many other versions got created, and then it further started spreading like raging like fire. So when it started from China, China went into complete lockdown. But ऐसा कुछ हुआ? February में it all started, that January it all started, and by the March in India the lockdown situation was there. In Italy it was spreading like the fire. So it is a very foolish thought of the Western world that they will keep the technology, they will safeguard their population, and then nothing will happen to them. Entire world will go to the hell. They will survive. So from where they can get this particular kind of a bitter wisdom? When you think about the humanity, when you think about the good of everyone, so then only you will also survive when they will survive. And so our survival is dependent on the everyone's survival. Our good is dependent on the everyone's good. So this is where they needed to learn the spiritual processes. Is it not a good example? Can you quote it? So this is how you need to bring the things over here. And this is what is the approach of the Western world. Now, there are many examples. So you will always have to think about the constructive aspect. Destructive nahi. Destructive mein hai nuclear technology. There is a need of transfer. Okay? So for example, nuclear mein bhi dekh lo. That in the nuclear technology, only 5 countries, okay, who are the permanent members of the UNSC, okay, they can use the nuclear weapons. What kind of wisdom is this? What kind of wisdom is this? If at all, there must be some wisdom or spiritual wisdom, so that wisdom that no country will keep any nuclear weapon, and the nuclear things will only be used for the good of the humanity, that is for the development of the nuclear power plants. But then in India, we all have seen those phases of the electricity outage in our villages, in our towns, even in Delhi also. But what if this technology of the nuclear power plants would have been transferred to India in the earliest stage? So we could also have been in that our ease of living must have increased, but it did not increase. Similarly, look at the poor countries of the world. If this would have been extended to the poor countries of the world, so then it would have been better for the world. But then the Western world always prefers a lopsided development. So they lack in the spiritual wisdom. They can learn this spiritual wisdom from the Western countries. The path of the optimum, madhyam marg. ठीक है? So, and this way, अगर जो ऐसा कोई क्वेश्चन आए तो सबसे अच्छा टाइटल बता रहा हूँ, एंड कर दो, सबका साथ सबका विकास. So yeah, that would be better. So this way you can go ahead with it. So this is very applicable, and that's why Swami Vivekananda, his quotes and the quotations seem to be very relevant even in the modern times. So mention, we have discussed a lot. So what is the last thing that you have written? Amy? So Hinduism in this conference. Then you write his quotations. He maintained. Motion is the law of life. Motion is the law of life. Law of life, and that stagnation results into degeneration, and that stagnation results into degeneration. Full stop. He further emphasized on striking the balance between materialism, of the West and spiritualism of the East. Then he said, West can learn spiritual processes from India. West can learn spiritual processes from India. And they can impart Indians with technological knowledge. Indians with technological knowledge, in brackets, material growth. Then, so this has been asked, this question which I gave to you, or this particular quotation of the Swami Vivekananda that we have discussed, 3 times it has been asked in the mains exam, particularly 1 time in the GS paper and 2 times in the history optional. So the discussion that we have done, that would be more than enough for both the things. Okay? So now listen about the other stuff. So when it comes to his contribution towards the social reform, so Swami Vivekananda, okay? Swami Vivekananda, he has also similar ideas like the Brahma Samaj people, that he was against the caste orthodoxy. He wanted those superstition and orthodox practices must be diluted from the society or abolished from the society. And then he also favored the widow remarriage, and he also was not in the support of the child marriage. When it comes to his political aspect, okay, or political participation, he did not participate in any political movement. Why we are talking about political aspect of Swami Vivekananda? Because it was the time when Indian National Congress was also founded and Indian freedom struggle has started. So though he did not give any political message at this point of time, but he inspired the Indian youth. He instilled hope in the India's future and glory in the India's past. In fact, there were many quotations of his which were mainly for the youth of India. So for example, one which is very popular, rise, awake and not stop until the goal is reached. Then, so this is one thing. And it is in 1897 when he founded this organization, Ramakrishna Mission, to carry forward his social work. So mention, you write. Paragraph change करके लिखना, ठीक है? That though he did not give any political message, but inspired the youth of India. Full stop. Youth of India. He instilled faith in India's future and glory of India's past. Full stop. Then mention. He was also against orthodox social practices and caste rigidities in the society. Then caste rigidities in the society. Then mention. In 1897, he founded Ramakrishna Mission. To carry forward the humanitarian work. Done. So this is what is about the Swami Vivekananda, and unfortunately he died at the age of 39 only. So that's how his movement, it did not came to stop, but then he has already inspired a good number of the people to go ahead with it. Then, so the next class, tomorrow's class, will be starting with the Theosophical Society. We'll complete the reform in Hinduism. We'll move to the reform in Islam. Take care. Chalo. Thank you.